It's the international break, but that doesn't mean we should stop thinking about FPL. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan and I've built a team that I think looks really good from game week 8 onwards. So whether you're on a wild card or just want to compare your own team to this, maybe we can make some changes to your current teams that build towards a really bright future in FPL, which gets you a few points. That's what we're all here for. So yes guys, this isn't just about wildcarding, this is a team that is good for anyone, really. I think a lot of you guys might have something similar to this and you can build towards it and by making a few tweaks to your team, compare it to your own team. I would really recommend that. That's what I've been doing to my own team to kind of look at what I would like going forward. So let's start off in goal. And by the way, guys, I always try and keep the budget fairly low on these videos so everyone could afford it. I know a lot of you guys are going to have more of a team value right now than the 99.9 million that this team costs. So we'll suggest some tweaks as we go through. But let's start off in goal, and it is going to be Raya as our goalkeeper. And I think he's just a guy to own long term. And remember, when you are wildcarding or when you are building a team for the longer term, particularly if you haven't got a wildcard to use after game week 8, whether you're using it now or not is a different question, but you want to have that goalkeeper who can give you security for the long term. And I know the next run of fixtures for Arsenal, they're not amazing, and this is not going to be a team you want to go all in on. A triple up on Arsenal is probably going out of fashion right now, so Raya is my only Arsenal inclusion with these difficult fixtures in the immediate term. But with goalkeepers, you don't really want to be making too many goalkeeper transfers throughout the season, and after this tough run of 4 fixtures, we do have the likes of Forest, West Ham, Man United, Fulham, Everton, Palace, Ipswich, Brentford and Brighton all in a row for Arsenal, and that should spell some clean sheets. It definitely should be noted that in the difficult games, Raya is more likely to get some save points there as well. And with a team like Arsenal, you never know when they are going to keep a clean sheet as well. So let's move on to defence, and it is going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. And this is a bit of a theme of this video, that I want to make sure that we are including a couple of players who are glue players, what we like to call glue players in FPL, where they really can just stay in your team for a very, very long time without too much concern. They bring your team together and you can focus your transfers on other areas of the pitch, targeting good runs of fixtures. Again, Trent doesn't have an amazing run of fixtures in the short term, but what we have seen from Liverpool is something exceptional in terms of their defensive numbers, and they really are brilliant, far better than any other team in the Premier League. Just 4.9 non-penalty goals conceded, expected goals conceded so far this season. That is significantly better than anyone else in the Premier League. They've actually only conceded 2 goals in 7 games so far. Phenomenal stuff. 5 clean sheets. It's really good, and I think we do need to kind of understand that a team like Liverpool have been genuinely really strong defensively under the new manager Slot. So I do want a bit of that defensive action from Liverpool, and with Trent, it's not just the clean sheets you get a defender and a midfielder, I guess, all wrapped up in one because of that creative ability that he does have, that he does show week on week. So just looking through some of Trent's numbers here, for example, it's looking really, really good at the moment. So we've got 8 shots in 7 games, very decent. But the key here is the key passes. 16 key passes, 5 big chances created, and an incredible 2.81 expected assists. So he is creating a whole load. Only 1 assist so far this season, but the numbers are suggesting that moving forward, it is going to be better. So let's move on to another player, and that is Josko Gvardiol. Gvardiol is a player who, unlike Trent, is maybe slightly more short-term, because over the short term, City's fixtures look brilliant. Really, really nice here. So we can see Man City face Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth, and then Brighton. After that, it does get a bit more mixed. They play Spurs in 12, Liverpool away in 13, and then Forest, Palace, Man United, Villa. You know, there's some tricky fixtures in there for sure. And with a player like Gvardiol, and particularly as I think Man City's defence isn't as trustworthy as the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool right now, I would be tempted to maybe swap Gvardiol to an Arsenal defender when things look a little bit better for Arsenal. So that could be a nice time, game week 12, to make a swap from Gvardiol over to a Gabriel for that aerial ability as well. Of course, Gvardiol does have that little bit of attacking impetus as well, which we've seen a little bit so far this season. Obviously, he got the goal, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago. Brilliant stuff. Hopefully get another one of them in some of these fixtures. Wolves, Southampton, for example, really nice fixtures there that I think he can thrive in. And for our final defender, we're going to go a little bit cheaper. Milenkovic is my choice here. Now, I've hyped up the Forest defence a lot on this channel. I really, really have. And I really do believe that when we look at those cheaper defenders, and I think in general, defences haven't been amazing this season. So I do like to go for a couple of premium defences that I do have faith in, but at the same time, we do need to go cheap somewhere so we can afford other players further up the pitch. And Milenkovic is the player I've gone for. Now, he will be part of a rotation that will be a player on the bench, which we will reveal in due time. But in the short term, really nice fixtures. Palace, Leicester, West Ham. We expect a couple of clean sheets from Nottingham Forest here. And looking through their defensive numbers, again, really, really nice stuff from them. They have only conceded 7.4 non-penalty XGA so far this season. Really nice in 7 games. And when you look at some of the fixtures they've played, particularly in the last 4, you know, they've played Liverpool, Brighton away. When Brighton are scoring goals, they may be conceding goals, but they are also scoring goals. Fulham there, good side, and Chelsea, who are a brilliant attack as well. And they've only conceded 4 goals, one of which was a penalty, of course, during that period. So you can see that even in the tougher fixtures, they are a hard team to break down. I look at certain fixtures, for example, like Liverpool and Fulham, you know, outside of the penalty in the Fulham game, there was no chances for the opposition because Nottingham Forest are just keeping things so defensively sound at the moment. One thing to note is Mats Sells is potentially injured now. Don't know how long-term that's going to be. Could that impact Forest? Maybe, but they also did bring in a new goalkeeper over the summer that was expected to start at one point. So maybe that can improve things. And of course, with Trent, Alisson potentially injured there as well. One good important thing with the Liverpool defence, though, is that they're just not conceding shots in the box at all. They are by far the top of the table for shots in the box conceded, just 37 so far, which is significantly lower than some of the other teams that we will see and we'll watch. And therefore, you know, even with a weaker goalkeeper in defence, teams like Liverpool, teams like Forest that aren't, and even teams like Man City, if they're not conceding many shots, the quality of the goalkeeper isn't as important. Whereas a team like Arsenal, maybe, the quality of the goalkeeper seems to be more important this season because they are conceding chances, but Raya has had some very good performances to kind of bail Arsenal out and get some clean sheets there. So I think that's something that's important to note, not to put too much pressure on the goalkeeper situation for certain teams, but for other teams, it is something that we should look at. But we need to move into the midfield next. And before we do, if you are enjoying the video, make sure you do drop a like and do subscribe if you're new around here as well. We make FPL videos a lot, not every day during the international break, as I gotta have a little bit of time to myself, but yeah, we are getting back into it, and we are getting the ball rolling once more. Leave a like and subscribe. Okay, so our first midfielder is going to be Cole Palmer. Now, do I love Cole Palmer as a pick right now? Well, honestly, no. If I'm on a wild card, he goes in. If I'm not on a wild card, he's not a player I would look to buy ahead of this Liverpool away fixture. We've already spoken about how tough Liverpool have been this season. But a few things to note here. First of all, if you look at the other players around Palmer's price, you look at Saka, you look at Salah, the fixtures aren't really that much better, in fairness. And with Palmer, you have a player who is involved in everything that his team is doing. Constantly the guy getting chances or creating, involved in what Chelsea are doing in attack. And even though these fixtures are tricky, and we kind of do see a history of Palmer getting these huge scores against some of the weaker teams, whereas some of the more difficult teams, you know, you might get an assist here, you might get a penalty goal, there's still potential for returns. It's not going to be anything insane. Don't expect a game week 6 Cole Palmer in any of the next 4 game weeks. Even Newcastle have improved defensively over the last couple of weeks. Manchester United, you know, putting in a real defensive performance a couple of weeks ago. Well, no, at the weekend as well. So, you know, we do see some potential banana skins there. Arsenal as well in that fixture run. But, like I say, if you're on a wild card, Salah and Saka don't really look that much better for fixtures. So, considering that after this run, you are definitely going to want Palmer. And I would rip my team up to get Palmer from game week 12 onwards, because Chelsea face, in a row, by the way, it's just one of the best runs ever. Leicester away, Aston Villa at home, Southampton away, Tottenham away, Brentford, Everton, Fulham, Ipswich. You know, we've got all three of the newly promoted teams in that run of fixtures, and this is where Cole Palmer does his serious damage, and you don't want to be without him. So, if you're on a wild card right now, considering the alternatives, I think you just have him now, save yourself a transfer later down the line, and I think you'll do absolutely fine. Of course, if you don't have Palmer yet and you're not on a wild card, well, I think you could probably wait a few weeks before bringing him in. I think Salah and Saka could score around the same as Palmer. I'm not sure it's really worth a transfer necessarily, but again, it is something you could consider doing after the Liverpool fixture in game week 8. But we've got to move on to Brian Mbeumo. Now, he has been a very trustworthy guy. He really, really has. He is one of probably the most essential player in FPL right now. I don't really see there as being an excuse to not own him on all set pieces, penalties, in great form, scoring goals from open play. I mean, Brentford at the start of any game, you know Brian Mbeumo is going to pop it up within 30 seconds of the game and settle the nerves with that early goal for your FPL team. It really is brilliant. The fixtures are also very good for a decent period of time. Another one of those glue players who you keep in. Players like Raya, Trent, Palmer, and Mbeumo. The hope is that you will not have to make a transfer on any of these guys for months. That's the hope. And that's why you include these kind of players. And then some of the other guys like Gvardiol, maybe a transfer in a few weeks. Milenkovic, you know, he's more of a rotation guy with your bench option. And we've got some other players coming up which you might not have long-term, but are very, very useful in the short term. And one example is Brennan Johnson, because he has been in phenomenal form. 6 goals in 6 games in all competition. He has that confidence. He is in the form of his life, and the good fixtures keep coming, starting with West Ham in game week 8. So it's definitely not too late to bring Brennan Johnson into your team. And I would say midfielders who are not non-premium midfielders, so a little bit cheaper, Mbeumo and Johnson, for me, would be the 2 number 1 transfer targets for anyone who doesn't have them yet. I think they're going to be really, really key players in this next run. After that, Johnson does have a tricky fixture against Man City in game week 12, but after that, the fixtures do look a little bit better again. So I do still think that Johnson is a player that you could potentially own for a long time, but is there going to be some rotation risk later down the line? Maybe. Right now, I don't think there is. Even when Son comes in, Werner is going to drop out of the team. Son will play on the left. Johnson will continue to play on the right. Kulusevski and Maddison, they're playing a little bit deeper in midfield at the moment, which is another reason I do prefer Johnson, because he's just in those more dangerous areas a lot, and he's getting a lot of chances, particularly with Solanke. It is really benefiting Johnson, I've seen so far this season. So I do prefer Johnson at that price as well, and for now at least, he's nailed. You know, he's good to go. That could change in a month, 2 months, but I think given the opportunities we have right now, we got to grab those, right? And our final midfielder is going to be Rodgers. Now, Rodgers would be a player who, if I had a little bit more budget, he would maybe be the player I would change in this team. Now, you could go for someone like McNeil, who's in really good form right now, if you do have a little budget. Like I say, I do like to keep the initial teams cheap, and then depending on your budget, you can use these teams as a template and make those modifications based on what suits you. Like I said, McNeil works really well here. If you could go up even more in price, then that's definitely an option for you as well. But we know value for money. Rodgers is a really nice pick, and you can play him nicely for the next 3 game weeks. I think after that, we do have another midfielder on the bench who I think is going to come in and look really, really good. So maybe Rodgers more of a rotation guy as well. If you have McNeil in there, he would be a rotation guy as well, regardless. So yeah, Rodgers in for now, but like I say, potential for change there. One thing I do like about this midfield setup is we have one premium midfielder there in the likes of Palmer. We have Mbeumo at 7.5, down another million. Johnson at 6.5, down another million. Rodgers at 5.3. A little over $1 million, but you get the point. So we have these different price points in the midfield where if we do need to make a transfer, you know, you need to change Palmer to a Saka. You know, you can get access to Saka through Palmer. You need to go for a Maddison maybe. Well, Mbeumo to Maddison. If you need to go for another 6.5, you know, you can move Johnson to that player. You know, if Bowen comes up, you know, Mbeumo or Johnson can move to a Bowen for example. And Rodgers, if you want to go for a McNeil or a Semenyo, you want to make a transfer like that, then this kind of works. You have a player at each price point where you can move them over quite easily without feeling like you're losing too much in the rest of your team, which is nice. I like that flexibility. Let's go up front, guys. We've got Erling Haaland, and I know people have been disappointed with him recently, but unless you genuinely believe that he is suddenly a very bad player, now is not the time to sell him. I look at these next two fixtures in particular, and we've got Wolves here. And what do we know about Wolves? Well, they concede a lot of goals. Maybe that's an understatement. 21 goals conceded in 7 games this season. That's 3 goals on average per game. And they're about to face one of the best attacks in world football, one of the best strikers in world football. This could be a cricket score. It really, really could. So this is definitely a time to own Haaland. It's definitely a time to captain Haaland, particularly when we look at some of the other options there. Palmer against Liverpool, Salah against Chelsea, Saka against Bournemouth away, which I don't think is an amazing fixture. It's okay. It's not amazing. Where else are we going to go for those captains? Haaland's your guy, right? For this week, he is the best captain. I think we will probably, most of us, agree with that. But of course, do let me know what you think about Haaland. One interesting note is that City's fixtures do get worse from 12. We mentioned this around Gvardiol. Similarly, if you wanted to take Game Week 12 as a period of time to remove Haaland from your team, I think that would be the moment to do it. If you're very, very brave and start spreading the funds around a little bit in your team, that would be the time I would do it. Now, I absolutely would not, because we've got this Wolves fixture and then, of course, Southampton at home, and you don't need me to tell you how good of a fixture that is. That is triple captain territory. I would personally be more likely to triple captain Haaland than to sell him. That is how much confidence I have in him over the next 2 in particular. After that, we can reopen that discussion, that Pandora's box of discussion. But we got to move to our next forward. It's going to be Solanke, who is putting up really good data. In fact, looking through all of the players in FPL, in the Premier League right now, out of the players playing regularly at least, Solanke is second best for expected goals per start, per 90 minutes, which is really, really impressive stuff. Obviously, he is at times spending some time occupying centre-backs in particular, which is freeing up his teammates, but at the same time, the numbers are really there. And one thing that I've noticed is West Ham, looking through the data and watching games, to be fair, West Ham, they concede a lot of chances from central areas, a disproportionate amount of chances from central areas and from strikers as well. So this is actually a really nice opportunity for Solanke. Brilliant fixture, but also a fixture that suits him positionally, which is important too. We've got that Crystal Palace fixture up next. Aston Villa are conceding goals. Ipswich at home, really nice as well. But again, maybe when we get to the Man City game in 12, you think about removing one of Solanke and Johnson. Probably going with both of them might be a little tricky. But our final forward is going to be Raul Jimenez. And I think he is a bit of a treat, a blessing kind of player, because when he was priced at 5.5 million, I don't think anyone expected that he would be the starting striker for Fulham. But that's what he is now. That's what he has evolved to be. On penalties, in great form, back to the form we saw a few years ago from him, where he was really impressive. And he's playing with confidence right now. And you can see how he pulled off that magnificent assist last game week as well. With the, it was just so beautiful stuff. Go watch it if you haven't done already. But that confidence is really important, because it looked like Jimenez, his confidence was not there for a long time, even though we knew what a brilliant player he is. And now he's back, it's time to capitalise on him. Of course, if you have a bit more budget, there are other forwards you could go for right now. Delap is the hype guy right now. Cunha looks good after the Man City game, if you're looking for a cheap guy. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we've kind of cooled on him a little bit maybe, but I think Raul Jimenez is probably going to be my pick of the bunch right now. But that's not to say he's the only option at all. Let me know what your favourite cheap forward right now is. I think most of you guys will probably say Delap. He's fine too. Absolutely fine too. Let's go on to the bench, guys. We've got Slicker, 4 million goalkeeper. I've gone for an Ipswich goalkeeper because I never have to worry about the triple up. And if I did go for Valdemarsson, for example, that would be a triple up on Brentford, and it would block me from other potential moves to Brentford players. I can't see myself going for triple Ipswich at any point this season, so I don't really need to worry about that. And with a goalkeeper like Raya, you know you're going to play him every single game week. Even in the tough fixtures, I would still prefer to play Raya than any other 4.5 million goalkeeper. So there's no real need to spend money on the bench there. Semenyo has a couple of horror fixtures here, Arsenal and City in the next 3. But after that, fixtures, brilliant, chef's kiss. So yeah, we've got the likes of Brentford in 11. For Bournemouth, which is a nice fixture. Brentford, one of the weaker defences in the league so far. Brighton at home, Wolves away, Tottenham, Ipswich, West Ham, Man United, Crystal Palace. Really nice run there. So I think Semenyo will be a player you want to have eventually. Some people are probably thinking of selling him right now, but if you can bench him, I think that's going to be really useful to have in the future. So, you know, just future-proofing your team a little bit there by already having that player in place, I think is really, really useful. Of course, we know about Semenyo, how many shots he takes. Only Haaland has taken more shots so far in the Premier League season. So, therefore, you know, shots lead to goals. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. So, let's see what he can produce a little bit down the line. I mean, you've got to have a little bit of patience with this guy. Nori, yeah. There's no surprise to see him in this team as the rotation option with Milenkovic. You're not going to want to play him against Man City. You're probably not going to want to buy him this week unless you're on a wild card. But after that, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh my word. Yeah, so what is it? 2 goals and 2 assists so far this season. Absolutely crazy stuff. We know he's a super attacking fullback and he will get you attacking returns even if Wolves are not looking so hot defensively. In fairness to Wolves, they have got better fixtures coming up, so maybe we could see an improvement on the defensive side. Wouldn't hold your breath too much on that one, but the odd clean sheet is definitely possible. But we're really interested in the attacking returns from a player like Nori. And finally, Vandenberg. They said he couldn't play in a 4 at the back. So far, they're wrong. But at the end of the day, a 4 million defender, you shouldn't want to play them ever. Really, I would never want to play Sepp Vandenberg by choice unless they had a really good fixture. And maybe Ipswich at home is an example of a fixture you might play Vandenberg in that one. But in general, he is there to be an emergency backup. If everything looks very, very bad, you have him as that emergency backup player on your bench. And I think at 4 million to have a player who will play regularly, hopefully. There is a little bit of minutes risk moving forward, but again, I would rather take a chance on Vandenberg than go for an Ipswich or a Leicester or a Southampton 4 million defender, to be honest. So, yeah, that's why Vandenberg is in this team. He would still be my choice. I definitely wouldn't spend 4.1 on my final defender on the bench. I would be a little tempted to spend 3.9. I believe there is a 3.9 million defender in the game right now. Let me just check out who that is, because if you were desperate to squeeze an extra, 0.1 million out of your team somehow, then maybe this will be the way to do it. Burgess at Ipswich, yeah. If you wanted to, you were desperate for cash, then maybe that would be a way of doing that. So, yeah, think about it. But in general, playing 4 million defender is probably going to be the way to go. But there is the team. We're going to throw the captain's armband on Haaland, put the vice captain on Solanke, but I think you could go for Palmer despite the fixture, and Burmo, Johnson. There's a lot of good players in this team. That's what we built it for. So Haaland is going to be your best bet for this fixture though, surely. But yeah, let's just have a look at how this team sets up week to week. So having a look at this team on the Fantasy Football Hub's My Team tool, we have got a 95% team rating on this team. So yeah, really nice. I always say 95% up is usually what you want to go for, and then adjust based on your own opinions after that. But yeah, 95% is solid, and we can kind of have a look at how this team would play out each game week before making any transfers. And a team like this, I don't think really needs any transfers for 4 game weeks, so ideally you would be able to save them. Things always go wrong in FPL though, injury, suspension, you know the drill by now, guys. But yeah, going into game week 9, yeah, this would be a point where I would be tempted to play Vandenberg maybe instead of a player like Trent, and drop both Trent and Milenkovic to the bench. You can still play Trent in a game like this though, so I think something like this works just as well. You could try Vandenberg. You could also try Milenkovic if you wanted to against Leicester. It is a good week, game week 9, for your defenders. Really good week, and you should hope to get some clean sheets there. I mean, you can even potentially go 4 at the back. Hey, why not? Could we do that? Is it possible? Not really sure who I dropped there, to be honest. But yeah, it's an option. We've got a lot of good choices there. Got into game week 10. At this point, you would maybe consider playing Rodgers instead of Semenyo there. Something like this would work out very well. And then for game week 11, I think at that point, that's when someone like Semenyo comes into your team against Brentford. Rodgers faces Liverpool, so you have that perfect timing. Semenyo gets a great fixture when Rodgers gets a horror fixture. The perfect rotation. That is exactly what you want. You continue to play Aït-Nouri in a fixture like Southampton at home. Really nice for him. Potential clean sheets, potential attacking returns, and that rotation would work quite well there. After that, you probably continue to play Aït-Nouri for quite some time, but at this point, I would be looking to start making some transfers. Gavardio out. And bringing in a player like Gabriel, I think, would be good timing here. Really good timing to do that, particularly if you have a little bit of money in the bank. So this would be a value of 100.2 million. Hopefully, most of you guys are at that kind of budget by now. But yeah, again, this is probably the moment. If I was desperate to sell Haaland, this would be the time I would do it. I don't think I will go there personally, but it's definitely an option as well for you guys. So I'm actually re-recording this part of the video the next day because some of my files corrupted. Would you have noticed if I didn't just mention that? Probably not. But a couple more changes you could potentially make in game week 12 would be a Spurs player out for someone else. And I do like the idea of maybe going Solanke to Havertz if you can afford to do that, particularly when Ødegaard is back. But the other option is to go Solanke to Nicholas Jackson because, as we mentioned before with Palmer, also Jackson at Chelsea has a really good run of fixtures there. So that could be really nice going forward. And I think in general, game week 12 just presents this excellent opportunity to make lots of transfers. So if you still have your wild card and you don't want to use it in game week 8, maybe game week 12 is going to be a really nice week to use it and make those wholesale changes to your squad. And if you do wild card a little bit earlier, maybe saving some free transfers is a good idea for game week 12 as well, because again, there are going to be a few potential switches you want to make specifically in game week 12 because of the fixture swings that we do see. But I think we can wrap it up there, guys. If you enjoyed this one, make sure you drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll see you on the next one. See you later, mates. Bye bye.